There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean Breeze Books. Welcome back to my channel and another Friday Reads. All right, it's a little warmer inside. I am down in my basement in my library, and I have now moved a table down here, which I'm using for some secret purposes. I'll tell you one of the purposes. No, I'm not going to tell you anything. But it's also good to do my videos sitting here with a chair and a table, and I got books on the table, and it's much more amenable to taking care of business. Anyway, I am in a great space. I think I'm going to be ending 2025 on a real high note. I've had a lot of happy things happen this year, but I'm just feeling quite exuberant. Maybe because I've seemed to have won the battle temporarily against insomnia, and so getting more sleep, better sleep, and not so much of it during the day, and been reading some great stuff and getting along great with Kenji. And when quarrels happen, we get over it pretty quickly and back on track. And I won't go so far as to say I'm feeling Christmassy, because that would be a stretch, but I'm just feeling lovely, and I hope you are too. The thing that I really want to say is that I was putting so much pressure on myself, and I do this all the time, but I really wanted to finish 3 books so that I could finish 2 or 3 more next week and get a lot of this stuff read by year's end. And what happened was I realized how deeply absorbing these 3 books were now that I was focusing on them, and that there was no way I was going to finish all 3, and there probably wasn't much chance I'd even finish one of them. And at that point, I just said to myself, Self, your viewers don't give a rat's ass whether you finished any books this week. They would be very interested in hearing why I'm so enthusiastic about these 3 books that I might finish next week. So that just lifted a huge weight off me. And this is a cyclical insight or breakthrough for me that what is the point of reading good books? It's not to finish them in a timely manner, and it's like not a report card. This is not a test. But I'm really excited to tell you about these books that I haven't finished. I did manage to get my book haul video done, and it's way too long. It's 45 minutes long. If you couldn't be bothered to watch a 45-minute book haul video, I don't blame you, although there's some really interesting books there. Anyway, I had fun doing it, but I will never subject you to a 45-minute long book haul video again. It took me hours to edit it, and I'm now doing my book hauls a handful of books at a time in my Friday Reads. All right, but I do have one bail, and this was anticipated by my comments last week. This Newfoundland novel, Hides, by Rod Moody-Corbett. Heidi and I didn't get along with it much better this week, and she did read this week's section, so to the 75% mark, and I was behind her, and I listened to the first minute of her check-in and realized she was not happy with it, and I said, can we just bail? And so I got to bail a few, maybe 30 pages before where she bailed, and so we did. This had a lot of promise, and it has a really high rating, and then I went and checked, and 17 people, or 14 people. And I think they're all the author's friends. And I don't mean the author isn't a good writer. He is incredibly talented, but he overwrites. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt for about the first half. I think I read maybe to the 62% mark or something, because his narrator was a real pedantic guy. But no, it was more than that. And was so difficult to read. There were moments of emotional poignancy, but they were so few and far between, and they're on this hunting trip, 2 father and son teams, and the one father had lost his other son in a mass shooting in Canada, in Calgary, the year before, and anything that had to do with the family dynamics and stuff, whether it was humorous or poignant, was really well done. But there were dozens and dozens of pages between any of that stuff that were really headache-inducing in a bad way. What was the one I marked? So see if you can get your head around this one. This is where I read another 6 pages after this. He's at the hunting lodge or whatever. I unwrapped one of my power bars. I think that might be, I don't know what that is, energy bar. I unwrapped one of my power bars and waved the stiff, wiry snack under my nose. It smelled like a room full of cardboard, soused in grainy ganache. I took a bite, and a game of tug-of-war in which metaphor, you might say, My teeth served as rope ensued. There was just so much of that kind of writing where I had to read it 3 times. I still don't get it. I don't want to get it. It was just ridiculous. Now, there might be 17 of you who think, oh, Sean, that's a beautiful sentence, and bully for you. You can go read it. But we couldn't finish. I don't think I'd try Rod Moody-Corbett's next novel, but I might do a Kindle preview on the second one after that, or the third one after that, because there was evidence of some talent here, but it was pretty awful. So that happened. So I really wanted to finish, but I'm only about halfway through, so that wasn't going to happen. But I'm really enjoying this book with a few reservations, and that's Benjamin Wood's, might be his first novel. It's not. It's the penultimate novel anyway, The Ecliptic. This is Olive's favorite novel, I believe, 2016. And as I told you before, it's about an artist retreat on a Turkish island, and it's a really elite secret thing that you have to know a former resident to recommend you. It's the only way you can get in, and it's for emotionally or psychologically wounded artists, and they can be architect, writer, painter, sculptor, anything. And you can stay as long as you want until you feel like you're ready to go back out and pursue your creative bliss, healed enough to do so. Fascinating concept, and I've gotten a little bit waylaid because we're now getting the narrator's backstory, and she is a Scottish artist. And it's interesting, but it's such a shift from what the life of these various people that are, some of them have been there for years, and then new people come in, and how does that all shake out? But that was all fascinating, and now it's a long digression about her story, but the stuff about the art is absolutely fascinating. I'm really mesmerized by it. I think I'm going to ultimately love it to bits. But it also is heavy, not dense, but just there's a lot of things to think about. Not just to be emotionally affected by, but intellectually stimulated about the art, because I don't know anything about art, but I'm increasingly drawn to reading about art in fiction. I've been on this, what is it called? Ekphrasis kick for a few years now. And this is one that certainly is very rewarding on that level. I don't know if I have much else to say about it. His most recent novel, I can't remember the title of it, it was on the Booker list. I heard a lot of people were incensed it didn't make it to the short list, but I'll certainly read it if this continues to be as good as it is. This was a book that I was planning to read to Mary Jean, and it's one of my mystery guest novels. It's called Birdeye by Judith Heneghan. And then Mary Jean needed to take a break for personal reasons from my nightly reading to her on Facebook Messenger. So I went ahead and started it by myself. And that was another one that I hope to finish, but I'm not even halfway through it either. And it's just so rich and layered. And it's about I realized last night I'm so terrible with characters' ages. I thought she might be 77 or into her mid-80s or something, but she's actually in her late 60s. She's British, but she's lived in New York State for more than half her life. And she has it's a commune, not new agey, I don't think, but hipster, and it's been in existence for 40 years, but now she's getting old, and the people that have lived there and helped her run it are getting old, and there aren't many new people coming, and so what's going to happen to it? But the backstory is fascinating, and Liv is an incredible character. She has a developmentally delayed daughter who's a twin, and the other daughter, lives in London and has rebelled against this hippy-dippy family she grew up in, and she's like this big high-pressure business woman in the UK, but she comes home to visit, and some people are leaving, and a new person has shown up, and can he be trusted, and all these memories, and I have to say, it is an extremely satisfying read so far, and I am planning to interview the author about it once I have finished. But I didn't finish it this week, and I'm not going to rush this one, because this is a rich read. I'm having a good time with it. The other one that I didn't finish, but I probably could have, because it's a shorter one, and I might be about halfway through. This is one of the books for the Mikiko reading project. This is one of her favorite books. I'll put a link to that video if you want to know what that project is about. An Irish novel called Falling Animals by Sheila Armstrong, and it is absorbing too. And I'm not sure that I may have to really do a thorough skim to put it all together, because each chapter introduces a new character, And the chapters do have a kind of standalone vitality as short stories, but they're all revolving. I'm trying to think of an ocean or sea verb that's instead of revolving. What's the word? Circumnavigating, the word I was groping for. Circumnavigating. Around a shipwreck on the Irish coast, and we're getting the story of the people that were on that ship. I don't know if they died in the shipwreck or what, and we're getting the people that found the ship or have explored the wreck or various things, and it's all going to tie together, but it's really lushly written, and I don't know why it's called Falling Animals, because there haven't been many animals at all in it, I don't think. But look at the illustration sideways. It's quite beguiling. So those are what I didn't finish, and maybe by next week. But why would I rush these luscious reading experiences, I ask you? I have also, and this is not a bail, or it's an unusual kind of bail. My mom has bailed on the book that I was reading to her. I was reading Latchkey Ladies by Marjorie Grant, a 1920s British novel by a Canadian woman writer living in the UK. It just wasn't grabbing her. But I'm enjoying it, so I will finish it, but I'm not reading it to her anymore. So instead, the next book that we had decided we'd do is a collection of short stories by Lucy Maud Montgomery of Anne of Green Gables fame. It was in my book haul video yesterday. The Doctor's Sweetheart and Other Stories by L.M. Montgomery. And these are stories that were published in journals and whatnot. I haven't read the introduction to find out when they were written, but I have a feeling they're fairly early in her writing career. And I've now read 4 to Mum, and we absolutely loved the first 2 stories. They were silly, romantic, and just so well done. And she's a really elegant writer, I have to say. And the humor in them was just luscious. Mum and I really loved them. The last 2 I read to her were quite a bit less successful, but that's fine. In any short story collection, it's like that. But the first 2 are about separated, estranged married couples that have been separated for years and then they meet again. Both of them, that's the opening premise, and just so well done. It's not very early 20th century fiction about a romantic or post-romantic coupledom, so there's not a lot of layeredness, but it's just sweet and lovely, so we're enjoying that. The next one I'm going to read to her later today is the title story, The Doctor's Sweetheart. All right, 4 books for my little book haul today, and I need to get this one done because I'm going to start reading it in the next few weeks. This is Edith Wharton's Autobiography, A Backward Glance, and I'm going to be starting it because that'll be the next Edith Wharton book that my Edith Wharton Book Club members and I will be discussing in mid-January. I don't know when it was originally published. I'm not going to bother to look that up, but here is a bit from the foreword, which is called A First Word. Years ago I said to myself, there's no such thing as old age. There is only sorrow. I have learned with the passing of time that this, though true, is not the whole truth. The other producer of old age is habit. The deathly process of doing the same thing in the same way at the same hour, day after day. First from carelessness, then from inclination. At last from cowardice or inertia. Luckily, the inconsequent life is not the only alternative, for caprice is as ruinous as routine. Habit is necessary. It is the habit of having habits, of turning a trail into a rut that must be incessantly fought against if one is to remain alive. In spite of illness, in spite even of the arch-enemy sorrow, one can remain alive long past the usual date of disintegration, if one is unafraid of change, insatiable in intellectual curiosity, interested in big things, and happy in small ways. In the course of sorting and setting down of my memories, I have learned that these advantages are usually independent of one's merits, and that I probably owe my happy old age to the ancestor who accidentally endowed me with these qualities. That really speaks to me in terms of I've got a big birthday coming up. What do you think? What's your guess? My 35th? No, it's quite a bit higher than that. So I'm thinking about some of these questions. Next is another mystery guest chat novel. I had a delightful mystery guest chat with the author of Ibis, Justin Haynes from the American South. Where was he from? Atlanta. And I expected I would have read it by now because it sounds so good. And so I hope to read it next year sometime. And this is his debut novel. It came out in 2025. It's about a Venezuelan refugee. Well, that's topical at the moment. And he or she comes to a town in Trinidad called New Felicity, just as the Trinidadian government is cracking down on immigrants. That's the premise. There's much more to it, I remember. And let's see how it opens. It has quite an interesting opening. Chapter 1 is called The Scarlet Ibis and the News of the Day. When everyone saw the Scarlet Ibis perched atop the once notorious house of ill repute near the edge of the village, there was a collective shiver, although no one would admit it. At first, no one thought anything of the roosting bird. The village was a mile from a tributary that spat river water out into the sea, where a mangrove blossomed and where 50 or 60 ibises nested and fed. This ibis had just lost its way, we figured. But the ibis stood on top of the house where Catherine the Great Disemboweler had once ruined the village's reputation through wooing, bullying, then tearing men asunder. And so this ibis unsettled us. It suggested a gravestone marking a glum future. It tightened anuses. And so ibis rumors nestled. Oh my goodness. Next is a biography of a poet in her own right and who also happened to be Sylvia Townsend Warner's lover, Valentine Ackland. The title of the biography is Valentine Ackland, A Transgressive Life by Frances Bingham. And it was published by Handheld Press in 2021. And I remember when this book came out, I heard quite a bit about it. And then I was lucky enough to find a brand new copy for $5 at the bookstore up the street. She was known as Mrs. Turpin, but her real name was Valentine Ackland. I'm not sure about the naming. But she was involved with communism during the 30s and the Spanish Civil War, environmentalist, peace campaigner. Here's the opening paragraph. One November evening in 1925, 2 young women from London arrived at the village of Chalden in Dorset. They brought with them 2 suitcases, a gramophone, and a wooden box full of records, the bare necessities. Both wore trousers, unheard of then except among perverts, and had eaten cropped hair. But this was the androgynous fashion of the moment. They were not a couple. The taller of the 2, Mrs. Turpin, had come to the country to recover from a recent operation to remove her hymen. Her friend, Mrs. Braden, thought this was tremendously funny. And finally, a Chinese novel in translation from that fabulous British publisher that brings translated Chinese fiction into print in the West, Sinoist Books, Souls Left Behind by Fan Wu, translated by Honey Watson. This is about a part of World War I history or early 20th century history that I knew absolutely nothing about until about 17 seconds ago. I looked up a review of it. During the First World War, some 140,000 men were recruited from China by the Allied forces. Their mission was not to fight, but to labor on the front lines. In exchange, they would, in theory, receive a salary and decent rations, and they were known as the Chinese Labor Corps. And this novel is about one of them. Opening 3 paragraphs. The room was full of people, but the guest of honor was nowhere to be seen. Earlier that morning, Anne had been busy in the kitchen. Though she had ordered fresh flowers and a cake and had arranged for a meal to be delivered, she still felt as if she had forgotten something. Then she remembered. She should make dumplings. When Maman was still alive, Anne had helped her to prepare Baba's favorite dumplings for his birthday every year, rolling out the dough, mixing the filling, wrapping them. But many years had passed since then. She found a Chinese cookbook in the same place Maman had left it. Touching its yellowing, yet still glossy cover, she imagined her mother bustling around the room. Anne could almost see her standing by the sink, humming a tune while washing her hands, swaying her head to the rhythm of whatever music was playing. Those all sound pretty darned interesting, don't you think? That's it for my Friday reads. Go forth and multiply. What? No, go forth and read your hearts out. Thanks for watching.